Hello, and welcome to the Smart Injury Doctors Podcast, the injury market's top program for doctors, lawyers, and insurers who want to gain greater insight on how to improve patient recovery results and deliver better services in the U.S. injury market. Please welcome your host, Dr. Jeffrey Allen Kronk.
Hello, doctors. What I want to talk about today is ninja depositions, or making it very easy for you in depositions. This is a topic that comes up a lot. I have a Smart Injury Doctors program, and the last Thursday of every month. So the Smart Injury Doctors program has coaching. It's twice a week coaching. It's probably the most economical program that's out there, and it's a highly effective program. But what we do every Thursday, at the last Thursday of every month, is Deposition Thursday. And on those days, either I create a scenario that we talk about, or the doctors come into the coaching calls with the questions that they would have difficulty with or think they would have difficulty with in depositions. And if somebody doesn't think that they have difficult questions, then I start asking questions. And it's like a little mini hot seat, but it's really fun. It has to do with just enhancing your ability to understand and hear questions before you would ever hear them in a deposition. So depositions, in my experience, can be extremely good for practice building. So you can have, you can be getting referrals from an attorney, or you're just starting to get, or maybe you've only had one or two referrals from an attorney, and you're now in a deposition or a trial situation. Usually it starts out with deposition, and the deposition is basically there for the defense to kind of feel you out. How well do you testify? How well do you explain things? Can the plumber who might be sitting and I'm not saying that plumbers are not smart people, but what I'm saying is, can somebody who's outside of your profession understand exactly what you're saying? Could the teacher understand it? Could the police officer understand it? Could the executive that's taking time off work understand what you're saying? So when communication is understood, it's usually understood because it's simple, not because it's using complicated terms that nobody understands in the first place. So what we do is I spend a lot of time with doctors, and I have spent a lot of time with doctors, really increasing their ability to handle questions really well. So let's first define, what is a good deposition? What is a good trial? When you're testifying, what is good? Well, what's good is when everybody thinks it was good. So whatever you're testifying, or where you're being deposed, if the plaintiff attorney thinks it was good, and the defense attorney thinks it was good, and the arbitrating attorney thinks it was good, or the judge thinks it was good, and the jury thinks it was good, and everybody thinks it was really good, it was really good. Now, why would it be really good? Well, if you're not playing any games, and you're super credible, and you have good consensus, and you're not trying to defend anything, you realize that, the injuries to the spine, let's take spinal injuries, the injuries to the spine are simple. There's three of them. There's fracture, excessive motion, and disc herniation. The majority of the country right now does not understand what I just said. They really don't. The majority of doctors in the country cannot tell you what a spinal injury looks like. And if you don't know what a spinal injury looks like, you are going to have some difficulty in deposition at some time or another. If you don't know what spinal injuries look like, I could run circles around you in deposition easily. So one of the things I have is I was a DC practicing for 17 years, and I also have a law degree, and I've done a lot of presentations, education, events for both doctors and lawyers. I spent a lot of time with doctors, spent a lot of time with lawyers. In 2013, I actually got my law degree. And I did my thesis in pre-existing conditions and the law of pre-existing conditions. And the law of pre-existing conditions makes pre-existing conditions one of the most simple thing that you'll ever navigate in the personal injury market. It seems very complicated, but it's not. But it oftentimes comes up in deposition. And in my experience in deposition, understanding the three ways, especially we're talking spinal injuries, the three ways that a spine injures is, like I said, most doctors don't know how a spine injures. So that'd be like if I said, all right, you're a dog bite expert and you didn't know what a dog bite looked like, or you're a gunshot wound expert and you didn't know what a gunshot wound looked like, or you're a burn expert, you didn't know what a burn looked like. right? You're a spinal injury expert, but you don't know what a spinal injury looks like. It is, you're gonna suffer. Eventually, you're gonna suffer. And usually it's going to be on that super big case that everybody's, riding on this case for you to be able to do a good job either in deposition or trial. And so, it's important. It's important to understand that, people who have the injuries are all the same. People who have the injuries are all different. And so your understanding of what you're doing, your understanding of not what you really want to do in a great deposition, by the way, when everybody goes, wow, that was really good, is you're not defending anything. You don't have to defend anything. If you find yourself having to defend something, I'm going to tell you right now that you're struggling a little bit in the deposition, because the consensus around the injuries and around the imaging, around what the imaging means, what the permanency is, what the activity restrictions should be, what the various professional guidelines, whether they're impairment guidelines or surgical guidelines or athletic guidelines or treatment guidelines, it doesn't really matter. They all tie together. And when you have them all tied together in a very simple manner, and you're really tight with it, with just that, what I just said, if you understand your condition, how the spine injures, what the guidelines say about it, and the various guidelines say about it, your treatment guidelines, surgical guidelines, impairment guidelines, activity guidelines, what these guidelines say about it, and what the consensus understanding of the symptoms of that injury are, it makes depositions and trial testimony very easy. And you don't have to be, you can be lethal with the truth. You can be lethal with consensus. And when you're that way, you're not having to defend anything, right? The other side, the one thing that we do a lot of, and I do a lot of when I say, hey, we do Deposition Friday or Deposition Thursday in my program is, and for some doctors, this is the key. Like I have one doctor I can think of, they see, 90 to 120 personal injury patients a month. And one of the biggest things that he improved on, and I know he's improved on, and I know he's gotten a lot out of, is his ability to handle depositions, because he does a number of them. He does a lot of them. And so, his main thing out of the program was, wow, he's seriously improved his depositions. I think this last year, he's had 2, 3 very high level depositions, and these are with spinal soft tissue injuries. When I say high level, just results that were super, in the 7-figure range. And to me, when that happens, I don't care a lick about what the settlement is. I just care about the fact that the doctor has a really easy time going through it. Remember, your job as a doctor is not to determine the benefits that the patient is entitled to. Your job is to document accurately, so the people who are determining whatever their benefits should be can accurately do it and do it easily with your documentation. Your documentation allows the patient access to any benefits they may be entitled to, but it's not you who's determining the benefits. In a trial, it's a jury that's going to determine the benefits. With an insurance company, it's the attorneys and the insurers that are going to decide what benefits they're entitled to, but it's all based on your documentation. So the foundation is there from day one of your deposition, of your trial. You got to have a good foundation. You got to have a good system of what you're doing. You're doing it over and over and over again. Just like a dentist, when they come in and they're, they get all their publics coming in with cavities, they're doing the same stuff over and over and over again. Spinal injuries are not much different. The injuries and the way to work them up are systematic. They should be worked up the same as a cavity. Every provider should work them up the same. The reason why every provider doesn't work them up the same today is because they don't understand. The majority of providers do not understand that simple question that I started off this with. What does a spinal injury look like? If you don't know what a spinal injury looks like, then how do you standardize the workup? If you don't know what you're looking for, how do you standardize the workup? You can't. Now, if you don't know what you're looking for, you are going to have these blind spots in depositions and trials. And that is going to be stressful. And so if you're out there and you're going, oh my gosh, I got to get prepared, and I'm spending a whole lot of time preparing, and I'm stressing about, I got to do this deposition, and I got to, try to perform well, and you're doing that, it'd be just so much easier just to get some coaching on it and not have to go through that, especially if it's your first time, second time, third, you don't have a lot of experience with it. Now, even those that have a lot of experience, a lot of times your answers are non-answers. They don't really answer the question, or the person who's asking the question is not asking great questions with you. And that's like really easy to experience. Like I said, we do them every the end of the month on Thursdays, and I ask questions that a lot of times providers are like, wow, they would ask that type of question. It's like, yes, they can ask that type of question. Just very, very, very good questions. Fortunately for a lot of you, the attorneys that are out there questioning you are not that great at questioning you. Simple things like, well, how do you know if this was caused by the accident, wasn't caused by a pre-existing condition? Those are some of the simplest things you'll navigate in that space. But the big thing that I just want doctors to understand, and this is kind of the takeaway, is before you answer a question in deposition, you should understand that question. So let me give you an example. If somebody said, hey, Dr. Smith, it appears that after 4 weeks of your care, everything else was palliative beyond that 4 weeks. Why wouldn't it be palliative? Why wouldn't your care after 4 to 6 weeks just be palliative? Okay, so the first thing I would want to know in that deposition, my first question would be, oh, that's a great question. How are you defining palliative care? And I'd want to get that defined. So I make sure I'm understanding exactly how he is using that word, or he or she is using that word. So, the idea of asking counter questions, or querying the question until I fully understand what's being asked, is what's going to happen before I answer a question. I want to understand, and that's the real fun part. If anybody, if you could be on these calls on these Thursdays, that's the fun part, because what happens inevitably is a doctor will start answering the question, but they're answering the question and they're sprawling. And when they sprawl, they give me more questions to ask. And now I'm going down a different line and a different line and a different line. And unless you've ever experienced it, it's difficult to experience. But where you don't want to experience it is in the hot seat. So I highly recommend for doctors out there, if you can get with groups that provide some sort of deposition training, especially if you're going to be in the personal injury market, it's gold. It's just gold. Plus the other thing is it takes all of your procedures and all of your systems, and it tests it. Test to see, like, how good is your documentation? How good is the system that you use? Can you answer questions with that system? But ninja depositions are easy. Starts with the foundation, though, of understanding the injuries. If you don't understand the injuries and you want to understand the injuries, I want you to definitely check out the Smart Injury Doctors program. You just go to smartinjurydoctors.com. If you want to find out more about our program, you just set up a time with me. You can do it right on the website there. You'll see it, just set up an appointment, set up a discovery call with me. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, and I enjoy the heck out of helping doctors, especially in this area of depositions, because depositions can be super, super easy. My Smart Injury Doctors will do very, very well in depositions because they understand what the injuries look like, and then they understand the consensus around it, and they're not going to be defending things. Now, it may take you it may take you some reps to do it, but that's the beauty of the deposition process. When you get a deposition request, other than the fact of whenever I would get one, it's like, interruption of time. What I didn't like is I'd have to arrange my schedule to fit it into my schedule. That's the only thing I didn't like about depositions or trials. But as far as like being deposed or getting to answer questions about a patient and about their care, about their condition, about the diagnostics, what we worked up, about the consensus behind it, about the guidelines that we used, like that I loved. That's easy. That's fun. And all you're doing in a deposition is telling the truth anyway. So as long as you're prepared to tell the truth, it's fun, it's easy. So doctors, I just wanted to give a quick little riff on depositions today. I hope something that I said to you resonates, makes sense. If you have interest in our program, go to www.smartinjurydoctors.com. Like always, I very much so appreciate the fact of you taking your time to listen to what I have to say. I look forward to delivering more content on the next podcast.
You've been listening to the Smart Injury Doctors Podcast, the #1 audio production show for professionals in the U.S. injury market that want to deliver better injury services to the patients, clients, or insureds they serve. If you like what you heard today, please leave us a review and don't forget to join us on our next program.